Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on.
People may not remember what we say here tonight, but they sure as shit gonna remember what we do.
She Acted Like She Belonged. She Didn't, by OK Bandicoot. I want to preface this story with the day we moved into my new townhome. My brother and I had lived together for a long time, so moving in together wasn't unusual. On the very first morning in our new place, I stepped outside to smoke a cigarette. My brother followed me, and we were talking about football, when he suddenly froze, pointing toward the wooden frame of our covered patio. Written in big black marker was my name, Ryan. Neither of us had friends or family over yet because we'd moved everything ourselves. It wasn't there the night before. We stood there confused, but never figured out how it got there. Now, fast forward 2 months. One night, I went to a bar down the street with a good friend while my brother stayed home. It was a normal night. I left the bar, grabbed some food, and got back around 1 a.m. My brother was already asleep. So I ate, went upstairs with my German Shepherd, and crashed. The next morning, I noticed something immediately wrong. My bedroom door was wide open, and my dog wasn't in the room. That never happens. My brother doesn't enter my room when I'm asleep, and he definitely doesn't let my dog out. Still, I brushed it off until I went downstairs. The first thing my brother asked me was, "Did you bring someone home last night?" I told him no. His face instantly changed. Fear, not confusion. He asked again, "Are you sure no one came back with you?" I swore they hadn't. I didn't even talk to anyone besides my friend. And that's when he told me what happened. At around 3 a.m., he heard loud noises downstairs. Thinking I was putting together the IKEA desk I had just bought, he got out of bed to yell at me for being so loud. When he reached the landing halfway down the staircase, he flicked on the light. At the bottom of the stairs was a girl. She was standing there, calmly picking up my desk box that had fallen over. She leaned it against the wall, then looked straight up at my brother. Neither of them said a word. I asked him why he didn't confront her or call the police, and he said my German Shepherd was standing right next to her, completely relaxed, so he assumed she was someone I had brought home. What unsettled him most was that she didn't panic at all when she saw him. She acted like she belonged there. After locking eyes, she casually walked into the living room instead of going out the front door, which was literally 2 feet behind her. He just turned the light off and went back to bed, deciding to ask me who she was in the morning. And that's when everything clicked. My bedroom door had been wide open, and my dog wasn't with me. Whoever that girl was, at some point, she had been in my room. Whoever you are, let's never meet. Red-Faced Man by Own Rip. I'm from Finland, and this happened to me 16 years ago when I was a 7-year-old boy. It was a hot summer weekend, and I was at a jazz festival on the other side of the country with my parents and family friends. The festival was mostly peaceful. Lots of people of all kinds, but mostly older folks enjoying the music, food stalls, and sunshine. There were security guards patrolling the area, and overall it felt really safe. I didn't know anything about jazz at that age, but I was mostly hanging with the other family's kid, who was close to my own age. I remember the grilled food and the ridiculous amount of soda we drank because of the heat. Some people were a little drunk, But my dad and the other father just had a couple of beers and kept things very chill. My mom was pregnant at the time with my little sister, so it definitely wasn't some crazy party for our group. It was getting late, and one of the final bands was playing. I had to pee, so I went with the other dad and his son to the toilets. After I finished, I stepped aside to wait for them just a few meters from the toilets, and that's when he appeared. An older man, maybe around 60 years old, walked up to me. He looked filthy, smelled awful, and his clothes were stained and torn. His face was bright red from sunburn, and his nose looked rotten. He looked like he had no teeth. He looked scary. Something about him made me feel uncomfortable. But as a kid, I was polite and didn't want to be rude, even though I definitely should have walked away. He started talking to me, and I don't remember what he said at first. But then he offered me some candy and some coins. And then he told me that I should go with him. I froze. It felt very strange because nothing like that had ever happened to me before, and I didn't understand what he meant by everything. I said something like, "I don't want to go. I need to go to my parents." And he repeated himself, more aggressive this time. He had a very creepy look on his face. I was looking at the toilets and hoping that my company would come out soon. And that's when he suddenly grabbed my arm and began to pull me toward him. I said he was very aggressive, and I began to scream and cry very loudly. Two random men happened to be nearby, and they saw and probably understood the situation. They rushed over and confronted the man. They tackled him to the ground, and almost immediately after that, our family friend's dad and his son came to the scene. The dad was also helping the other man keep him down while he was struggling and yelling while he was on the ground. Security showed up within a minute and escorted the old man off the festival area. A woman came over to comfort me, and we rushed back to my parents. My mom was absolutely horrified. My dad was furious. I calmed down pretty quickly, and the situation was basically over. Oddly enough, the police never came. I don't know if anyone filed an official report about it, but the old man had already been taken away, so that was that. I was too young to understand the full weight of what almost happened. I wasn't traumatized by it, at least not in the way that stuck with me emotionally, but I've always avoided drunk or sketchy-looking people ever since. Now that I'm older, I sometimes think about how bad that scenario could have turned out. I mean, really bad. And if I ever have my own kids, you can bet I'll be very clear with them. Never talk to strangers, ever. Parking Lot Thing by Beverly B. First off, I have to say that I've never believed in ghosts or supernatural things or anything of that sort until earlier this year. I had no reason to believe in them. I live in Dallas, Texas, where I'm an attorney. Around February of 1998, I was in a business meeting held in an office building in downtown Dallas. It's not an old building, one of those mirrored glass skyscrapers. Anyway, the meeting dismissed around 10:30 that evening, but a few people from our firm stayed around to discuss the outcome. Around 11 o'clock, two of them left, leaving me alone with one of my closest friends, Brent. We chatted a little longer, for about 15 minutes, before exiting the room. He had parked in a pay-and-park lot across the street, and I had parked in the parking garage adjacent to the building. After we said our goodbyes, he got in an elevator, and I looked for directions on making my way back to the parking garage. I was a little surprised at the seeming lack of security, as there were no guards or officers present that I could see, save for the lobby, at which there were several security guards at the front doors. I ended up having to go down to the lobby, and I believe we had been on the 37th floor, and then I had to find out how to exit to the parking garage. I was told I had to get back into the elevator and go to the 8th floor, I apparently had parked on the 8th floor. Then I had to turn the corner, go down a hall until I reached the exit doors, and that would take me to the parking lot. I thanked the person who told me that and got back in the elevator. Around 10 minutes later, I was relieved to have the parking garage spanning before me. Fantastic, I thought. A huge, empty parking garage, 8 stories up, where absolutely no one would hear me if I had to scream. I was also surprised to find it almost completely filled with cars at such a late hour. However, I noticed there seemed to be a lot of activity in one of the surrounding buildings, and guessed the cars must belong to the guests over there. I don't remember exactly where I parked, but I knew it was at least several rows back, so I started walking past the rows of cars. I walked about 5 or so rows, and when I finally spotted my car, I was no more than 40 feet away from it, when in the row of cars behind my car, something ran extremely fast and disappeared behind the other cars. Let me describe this something, and as childish as it may sound, it looked basically like Uncle Fester from that TV show The Addams Family, if he'd been painted completely black and scurried on all fours. I'm 99.9% sure whatever it was not human, although I can't give a logical explanation for what it was. While it scurried by, it gave a creepy laugh sound of some sort. When I first saw it, I thought to myself, I must be imagining things. But I kept watching and watching, and I was still seeing it. And to this very day, I'm positive I saw what I saw. I watched it run down the aisle behind the cars for about 5 seconds, and then I turned and started running back towards the doors. I was most scared then because I didn't know where it had gone, and I couldn't hear anything except my heart beating in my ears. I can say I have never been so scared in my life, and I seriously doubt I ever will be again. I jumped in the elevator while the doors were still opening, and pressed the door close button as hard as I could and went back to the lobby. I called Brent on his car phone while walking to the front desk and basically begged him to come back and take me home. He could tell I was pretty frantic because of my voice. I'm generally a pretty calm person. And he was back at the building within 10 minutes. He asked me what was wrong several times in the car, but every time I thought back and pictured it in my mind, I felt like I was going to vomit or faint. About an hour later, we were still at my house, and I was able to give a little gist of what happened. As we are both rigid, conservative attorneys, the whole situation was a little difficult for him to believe, as I'm sure it would have been for me if the situation had been reversed. If anyone has any suggestions on what I might have seen, please don't hesitate to let me know. The One Time a Customer Hid in the Toilet by Hello Kitty Minions. So I'm going to start this off by saying that English is in fact not my first language. So there might be some mistakes here and there, but you shouldn't have much difficulty getting through this. This happened at work, I'd say about 2 years ago. At that time, a 19-year-old female, I worked at my local coffee shop. And by the way, I still work there. And I usually work a closing shift, which ends at 2,200 hours. During dead times, we have to close the shop alone, which I did this day. So about 15 minutes before I closed my shop, an unusual client entered the cafe, and I say unusual because most of my clients are regulars. So this dude, I would say he was in his mid or end of his 30s, came in and asked for an empty cup, which I gave him. Nothing seemed weird at first. This guy just went into a corner to pop open a bottle of champagne. He chugged about half of it and poured the other half in the same cup I gave to him. I did think it was weird, but I didn't want to confront him because I was working the shift alone. So after chugging that huge amount of alcohol, he just started dancing around the same corner, which I did find weird, but in reality I just wanted to finish my shift and go get wasted with my friends. So about 5 minutes before closing time, I went around the coffee shop and notified the clients that I was closing. Before leaving, the dude came up to my counter and slid a chocolate bar over and said, "Thank you so much." I smiled and said, "No problem." And then he left the shop. At first sight, the chocolate bar seemed normal, but after further investigation, I noticed that it was cut in half inside the package. It seemed to be swelled with some sort of hair straightener, which I did find concerning. One thing that I didn't mention at first is that my friends were sitting at a table inside the coffee shop. But during the time that he was there, I didn't talk to them at all since I was trying to finish my tasks as fast as I could. So at first sight, they didn't look like they were my friends. Whatever. Time went by and 2,200 hours came around. I locked both the front and back door, and when locked, it is possible to use the back door to exit the restaurant, but not enter it. While I was counting the cashier out and messing around with my 3 friends, one of them went to the bathroom. It's important to note that she used the handicap bathroom, which shares the same wall as the men's bathroom. Kind of annoyed, the same friend came to us and asked, "Who knocked on the wall while I was pissing?" Me and my 2 other friends all looked confused because the 3 of us didn't pull such a prank. And safe to say, we all were kind of concerned. Naturally, we went and did a quick check in the men's room, and we didn't open the one and only cabin that is right beside the said wall because we were a little too scared, meaning the man might have been crouched on the toilet. After that, I finished my closing work. I closed the lights, and as I was about to enter the code to exit the building, I heard the back door open and close. I think it's pretty obvious that someone was, in fact, hiding in the bathroom. All that made me connect some dots. I mean, what if I really had been alone that night? What if for some reason I ate that chocolate that guy gave me? Would he have attacked me, raped me, killed me? I mean, all that might seem to be a bit of a reach, but we really never know someone's intentions, do we? So many unanswered questions, but that situation still keeps me up at night. I hope I never meet that guy again. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode. If you have a true scary story of any nature you'd like me to narrate, email it to UncleJoshTrueScaryStories@gmail.com. I read them all. If you're catching this on YouTube and you like what you heard and saw, why not give it a thumbs up? If you're not subscribed, why not become a subscriber? And leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you thought of the stories. If you'd like to take your support of what I'm doing a step further, find a link to my Patreon page in the description and get yourself some Uncle Josh or Campfire Crew merchandise. A link to my TeePublic storefront is down in that description too. Everyone, be excellent to each other. And until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.